are you and why are you here? Are we gonna live life in fear, or are we gonna stand up and make sure we're heard? Are we gonna hide or live life by our word? With integrity we can be all that we can see in our mind's eye until we're finally free. We can become whatever we choose once we know the choice lies within me and you. Now's the time to wake up. No time for playing small. With a painful history and an uncertain future, now is the time to evolve.
Hello. Welcome to the Unapologetically Human podcast with Dan Boyven. As they say, as some people say, it's been a minute. It's been almost a year and 5 months since I created and shared my last episode of this podcast, and there are quite a number of reasons for why that is. As you're all very aware, it's been a fucked up year and a half, and we're not quite through it yet, but hopefully we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel by this point. But yeah, here's a new episode for you. I just wanted to give a little bit of an intro. Big shout out to my guest on this episode, Jordan Lindo, a friend of mine who reached out to me a couple times to support me, that he really loves what I've done with the podcast up till now, and that he's been waiting for the next episode, and then he is still waiting. And so I figured, hey, why not have him on and have a little bit of a conversation about what this past year and a half has been like for me, and how he's been getting through it himself, and some of the reasons why I've waited so long to create another episode. And I just want to set the setting a little bit for reasons that I won't get into. Both of our places weren't going to be suitable to record the podcast, so we decided to book a private study room at one of the Toronto Public Library locations that ended up also not working. So we ended up just going to a park, sitting at a park bench. So you'll hear some lovely nature sounds in the background, and you'll hear some wind rustling and stuff like that. And forgive me, I noticed as I edited when we were talking, we both kind of, mostly me I think, but kind of banged on the table quite a few times while making points. So just don't mind the knocking sounds every once in a while. But yeah, what was it? There was one thing I wanted to touch on. Yes. Something that I didn't talk with Jordan about in this conversation is that I had done some therapy with a counselor for about 6 months. And I'm currently working with a coach as well. And something that has occurred to me with the challenges that this year has presented is that sometimes when we work on ourselves, when we maybe do therapy, maybe do a course to learn something, and we don't see the kinds of results that we want, or we fall back into old patterns, it can get extremely discouraging. I know it has for me. I've spent a lot of time and money and energy and done a lot of different things, therapy programs, whatever, to try to become the person I want to be and change certain things about myself, about my behaviors, my habits. And a lot of times I make progress when I'm doing those things, but then when I get outside of a external support and structure system, I tend to fall back on my old ways of thinking and behaving, old habits, the things that I want to change. I kind of go back, and it is something that has driven the sort of feelings of hopelessness that, things will never change. I'll never change. But something that I've come to, it's a concept I've heard in some of the programs I've done, that when the structures that we put in place and the support systems that we put in place to change our behaviors and change our habits and try to have support and accountability to do so as well, when they either don't work or they collapse or stop working, we need to keep going. We need to try something else, try something new, switch something up about what we're doing. And so a motto that I've had for myself recently is do it again. Do it again. Oh, you've already done therapy? Feeling like you need to do it again? Do it again. You've done all these programs and courses, but stop progressing when you're outside of those, then do it again. Do something else. Do it again. The challenges that we're faced with are often so deep-seated from such a young age. They're so ingrained, and they took so many years to develop. And the defense mechanisms and the walls and the barriers that we put up and create within ourselves and the world creates within us, those took a long time to develop. The changes that we want to see, the progress that we want to see is often gonna take a while to really see the kinds of results that we want to see as well. So do it again, do it again, do it again. But that's about it. Let's get right into it. Here's a conversation with me and my friend, Jordan Lindo. I hope you enjoy.
Full energy, full attention. Let's go!
All right. Yeah, see, this is so much better because if we were in that room, we couldn't just be fucking
I'm explosive, man.
I knew it too. So am I. Like, I'm generally a loud person. So
yeah.
But yeah, well, fuck, dude. Like, this is like largely happening because of you. So I want to just like say thank you first of all, and like, I actually crunched the numbers a little bit. Like, you had reached out to me after listening to the other episodes, and so it's like I've done 12 episodes, and accumulatively they add up to about 15 hours. So it's like you've listened to me and my voice and my content and the stuff that I put out there, which is nothing compared to, like, you think of like fuck Joe Rogan, that's like 5 episodes or 3 episodes.
Oh yeah. True.
or like 5 episodes. But just like you had reached out and said like, yo, like I just like listened to the last episode and realized there isn't another one. Like, what's up? When is it coming? And I was like, like I'm just kind of taking a break right now, trying to figure out what I want to do and whatever, and had whatever reasons stopping me from making it.
Yeah.
But then, like not too long ago, you reached out again, kind of just with another little poke, like, hey, bro, like I'm just giving you a heads up. I'm still waiting on that next episode. So I thought it was appropriate to like, why not bring you on for a conversation? And you had me on your podcast, and I've been wanting to. I've been paying for my hosting to keep the podcast up for the past year and a half. It's almost been a year and a half. Year and like 5 months at the end of this month, basically.
Yeah.
So it's like it's been a while, and I've been very like just kind of like whatever about the like not doing it, and like like I don't really give a shit what people think and whatnot, right?
Can I tell you something real quick?
Yeah.
I just want to tell you about like the experience of what that is like. Like, when you're watching a show and you don't know how many episodes there are, then you get to the last episode and then you go like, and then there's a hole in your life.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But in real life, you don't know the director, you don't know the actors. You can't make a call and say, when is season 2 coming? Okay, guess what? If you need me to help you get season 2 on the road, like, I'll help you. you know, but I knew that you were a message away, and I'm like, no, this can't end here, man. That's why I was like, I had to fucking reach out. I just wanted to let you know that it was like, it had that much of an impact.
Yeah,
that I had
thank
to
you.
reach out and be like, nah, let's go, man, let's go.
Thank you. Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Like, it's challenging because it's easy to, in the best of times, I find it's easy to get, you know, trapped in the things that stop us in our life from doing XYZ. It doesn't matter what it is. We all have different fears and insecurities, limiting negative beliefs that hold us back, and they stop us. We get stuck in the, like, you know, what's it really even matter? And there's been a lot of that going on for me this past year and a half, right? But every so often throughout the years of me writing and sharing and creating different things with like my project and other things I've been doing before the podcast, I always consistently, every few or every several months, a friend reaches out and tells me that I've made an impact on them with the things that I'm creating. And those things are like, it's like immeasurable how important those things are for, you know, creatives to have other people to support them and to create with and stuff, as I'm sure you know, right?
Yeah, I was just talking. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
See, okay, so there's two ways we can run this podcast, because I have my own podcast, and so you're gonna have to like subdue my podcast hosting energy. Because I'm gonna like find ways to flip the script and
yeah, you'll be interviewing me. Well, that's the thing too. I find people talk a lot about interviewing other people on podcasts, and similar to like you said in message like earlier, that I'm a conversationalist, and I'm like, that's what my podcast is about. My podcast isn't about interviewing people and like having you on and just asking you questions and stuff. Like, I definitely like know it's important to be able to both ask good questions to get the other person to speak and be able to have a good conversation. But for me, like, I wanted to make a podcast for so long because I would have these deep, connected conversations with friends and be like, this is gold.
People
like,
need to hear this.
Yeah, right? Right? But I think one thing we can start out with is maybe just, why don't you introduce yourself? And we've got Jordan Lindo on
the podcast has started already?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. And that's my intro. No, my name is Jordan Lindo, and you know, I find it hard sometimes to describe what it is that I do, because I'm one of those people that is always shifting and changing things up. But the one thing I can say is consistent is my coaching practice. Like my coaching practice is always happening. And so I'm a coach, and realistically, an image consultant second probably. But image consulting is what I used to market, because
I remember,
that's the fancy thing people will be drawn to. But the biggest part of what I do in terms of life coaching in terms of being an image consultant is coaching the person, because usually people have like self-image issues. And then that spills over into how they put themselves together. So image consultant, coach. I started day trading. I've been day trading for 2 years now. That's been pretty awesome.
Oh yeah.
Cryptocurrency.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know much about that. We could probably talk about
dive
that
into
a bit.
that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, not necessarily like right off the bat, but maybe we'll see where it goes.
Dude, whenever you want to dive in, you let me know, man. I'm open to talk about anything. My life's an open book. And then what else am I missing? Videographer. I just told you off air.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is it off air?
It was, yeah.
Off
it was
the
in the other room.
Yeah. I'm a videographer as well. Shot a cool project over the weekend, which was fun. And that's pretty much it. I haven't done photo. I used to do photo as well. I haven't done photo in a while though. But the skill is always there. It's like riding a bike.
Yeah. As soon as you pick up the camera, you're ready to go.
A few little tweaks here and there, and then, you know, that's it. You're back on the bicycle. So I think that's a rough overview of everything that I'm up to.
Cool, man. Cool. Well, yeah. So I was thinking.
Oh, I almost forgot. And I'm a Bigelow as well. A gigolo, sorry. Gotta pay those bills.
Juice Bigelow.
Male gigolo.
Yeah, so I have a couple little notes here just for a couple things I wanted to touch on.
Awesome.
Basically, I was thinking of, you know, just telling you, having a little bit of a conversation about and just sharing a little bit about like what have I been up to you know,
like me or you?
Both of us, really. Like, I definitely want to get some insight into, you know, how's your experience been over the last year and a half with all the fucking insanity that we've all been dealing with. And I think, you know, everybody has their own story of what this has all been like, and it's been a challenging year and a half, right? And I was thinking of just kind of explaining a little bit about why I haven't made a podcast episode in the last almost year and a half, right? And part of what happened, I guess, like, it's almost like one of the biggest challenges for me in my life, I've found, and it's very attached to in some ways, my struggles with my mood and depression and anxiety and stuff like that. It's very attached to my work I'm doing in my life, my sense of meaning and purpose, or lack thereof, which is the key. That's been the challenging part of it, because I've done a lot of different jobs in my life, and I've never been very thrilled about what those jobs are, and I feel like they're, you know, outside of work, life chores, and maintaining like relationships with your friends, family, and an intimate partner, and then just having some time to relax. There is no time left to, you know, create your podcast, create your side hustle business, like create your art, whatever it might be. And I think obviously like that's the case for tons of people,
Everyone.
millions, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been an ongoing struggle for me, for sure. And so that's been like part of it that's been a little bit challenging in creating the next podcast episode, but the pandemic has had a lot to do with it as well, right?
Yeah. Well, you do your podcast in person, so you probably don't like the idea of doing the over the air type thing, Zoom.
I mean,
podcast.
I did it. The one episode I had with my fiance Justine, we actually did over like the computer while she was living up in Bracebridge with her parents. Mm-hmm. But I definitely prefer in person, for sure.
Yeah.
But that's something I'll obviously have to get over. But I think one of the big challenges was the way that I did the last 2 episodes. Mm-hmm. Was very taxing on me, because I did 2 solo episodes, and I basically I had an idea of these things that I wanted to talk about, and I researched a bunch to kind of, you know, get some more clarity on what I wanted to speak to with those topics in those last couple episodes. And I had, you know, a few to several pages of show notes, and then ended up the second last episode, I recorded myself talking, just sitting in my bedroom, just talking into a microphone alone, which is so different than just having a conversation one-to-one with somebody like this. Mm-hmm. Because like this, it just sort of, it flows, you know, whatever comes out of me. And the other way is much more challenging to sort of pull it out. I think it's because there's less of there's too much ease of getting stuck in my own head and overthinking rather than just kind of shooting the shit with somebody and having a conversation.
Okay, let me ask you a question then. Do you ever get into those states of mind or state of emotions where you like have all this stuff on your mind and you wish you could have someone to talk to? And if you did have someone to talk to, you would like blurt and like regurgitate all this shit on your mind?
Yeah, for sure.
So why don't you just treat the mic like a person?
I mean, it's like, in theory, it would be like good if I could sort of like kind of easily do that. Mm-hmm. But when I'm sitting in my bedroom by myself trying to navigate my way through like a thought process of several different complex ideas and how I can string them together, it's like it's a lot different. And a lot of second last episode, I recorded myself for 3 hours and I edited it down to 2 hours. Yeah. And a lot of that is just dead air. It's me thinking in between what I'm saying, and it's actually a really weird process, because sometimes I actually pause mid-word while I'm thinking about sort of what I'm saying, and then I just like...
That's so cool.
It's so weird. It's literally like listening to myself editing is like bizarre, because I'm like, how do I even do this? Because I'll pause mid-word, and I'll pause for 30, 45 seconds sometimes while I'm thinking about what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then I'll just continue, like even like the same
Word.
I'll even like just finish the word. Well, I don't have like I don't have like a brand like going the whole time, but it's a weird process, and it's also new, right? Like any new thing that you're trying to do and learn and stuff, it can be, the creative process can be challenging to really like, sitting down to actually do it is very hard for people to do,
definitely.
whether it's like sitting down to paint, sitting down to write music, whatever it might be, sitting down to just write. That's the hardest part sometimes, and then once you're sitting down and doing it, it's like
it's
like
easy.
now I'm easily getting into like a flow state. But the whole process was just very sort of taxing, and I guess the challenge in relation to the like being able to create your side hustle or your passion projects outside of all these other responsibilities that we have in life. It's like when we want to see a return on our investment of time and energy and money much faster than it's realistic to ever happen. And it's easy to get caught up in like letting that derail you and discourage you so that you stop rather than being able to still consistently show up. So there's a bit of that going on. And
I want to recommend something though before you go on. This is something I just found out myself, and I never thought I would do this because I thought it's so cool. Like on my podcast, I thought it would be cool to leave the spaces and the gaps in because I thought it would be cool, right? But in Audacity, you can I don't know, I think it's called sound parsing or something like that. It removes the gaps, and I found that the way that they do it in Audacity, like livens up even the most dead. If you have 3 hours of an audio and then there's a lot of gaps, it could bring that to like an hour and a half.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done manually, basically.
Manually?
Right? Manually. Yeah.
Dude, no, don't do that manually.
Yeah. Well, that was part of the problem, right? Because last episode I recorded myself for 4 hours, and I also cut that out down to 2 hours. So it's like a really intensive process, like the whole beginning to end of coming up with the ideas, researching it, planning out a little bit of like a show flow outline, recording it for a few hours, editing it down, most of which is dead air, but occasionally like some speaking I actually want to cut out. But then it's like, how do I cut and then continue on where it makes some sort of sense? If I'm cutting a chunk out.
But why do you cut chunks out? I always think to ask this to people who are creatives, because it's like I know I'm like plugging my podcast, but
plug it.
On my podcast,
what's the name of it?
Ask Infinity.
Plug away. We're gonna get your info.
And the YouTube channel is youtube.com/askinfinity. I am your host, Jordan Lindo. This is now the Ask Infinity podcast.
No, you gotta post our episode still.
Oh yeah, dude, I don't know where it is. I can't find it. We have to shoot another one.
For real?
I'm missing 5 episodes.
Really?
And I'm missing I thought I backed up my computer because my computer crashed.
Yeah, you mentioned.
I don't know.
It's gone. Okay, so a couple years ago, Jordan came over to my apartment. We met through my roommate at the time, a good mutual friend of ours, and we recorded a 2-hour podcast that has now been lost to the ether. That's okay though. Yeah, we'll have to have another one for yours. But
where was I going with that?
You were asking why cut out some speaking.
Yes. Before I got derailed.
So, in my case, the only speaking I've cut out, whether it's been me on a solo episode or my episode with Anushka and like another episode I had with another friend, there's just like a bit of like almost like back end side talk that has sort of nothing to do with the conversation.
Give me an example.
Well, so my friend Sophia and I, which was I think like episode 9 or something, but she's a neuroscientist and she's a good friend of mine, and we always have fucking amazing conversations. We'll hang out for hours and hours. Like I remember one time we hung out for like 9 hours and we just talked nonstop about all these different amazing, crazy, mind-blowing topics and whatnot. But when we actually sat down to try to record a podcast episode, it's like that same thing of not being able to treat the mic like a guest if I'm doing a solo episode. It's like even having the mic in between us made like we actually scrapped the first attempt at doing an episode together because it was just shit, because the mic sort of like created this resistance from a normal conversation just flowing,
I
right?
I hate that.
It
so
also
much.
was, I think it was, I think I recorded it before the podcast with Anushka as well. So it was my first attempt at recording a podcast episode with a guest.
Yeah.
And it was just weird and awkward, and there was no flow to it. And we got to a point where we were just like, we're going to have to try again. Like we talked for like an hour and a half, and we were kind of like, what the fuck are we
even
talking
talking about?
Yeah. So when we tried again, we like nailed it. We had lots of good stuff, but then there was like some side talk, kind of just like, oh, like we can like do that again, or we'll talk about this, and then we'll talk about this. It was just sort of like talking on the podcast.
Yeah, but do you think that could potentially be like an interesting point of view if you left it in? Like, almost...
It could for sure. The only thing is that when the episode, even in its fully edited form, is a 2 hour to like a 2.5 hour long episode, it's kind of like I want to cut out the kind of stuff that doesn't need to be there, so that it's, because it's like the idea that, like, you know, our time and our attention are the most valuable things that we have these days, and there are companies like Google and Facebook and all these advertisers that are paying literally hundreds of billions of dollars to get that time and attention. So part of it is actually less from a space of like that stuff not being good enough or some sort of negative thing on how I might be feeling about it, but actually just trying to respect the time of the listener that they're giving. You know, like it means a lot to me to have people like you and some of my other friends like tell me that they really appreciate, you know, the things that I'm creating, and I just want to like respect that and make sure that I'm, especially when it's going to be a 2 hour episode anyway, which some people have even said like, can you make them shorter? And I'm like, I mean, I'm leaning more towards the Joe Rogan type of thing than the 30-minute concise, this is clearly about this topic for the next 30 minutes type of thing.
That's a show at that point.
Yeah. But so that's part of it.
Okay.
But yeah, so there is a lot of that, like, why bother? It's taken me so much time and energy to create these last couple episodes, and herein lies part of the problem of creating it in that way, which I want to definitely, I'll probably do solo episodes once in a while going forward, but I want to have more conversations because I love having conversations, and the creation process of the solo episodes I didn't love. I like the outcome, I like the end product, I'm happy with it overall, but the journey was very full of resistance and not enjoyable, basically. But this episode was, you know, quote unquote supposed to be, the idea that I had for this next episode was to, you know, the last two episodes were like Coronavirus 1 and Coronavirus 2, and this one was like, in theory, gonna
Coronavirus, the trilogy.
Right. Well, I even have it still written down as like Coronavirus 3.
Oh shit.
Well, I mean, we're still in it, right? We're
Yeah,
still in the
true.
pandemic. It's like it doesn't seem like it as much, but who knows? You know, like we can only hope that we don't have another lockdown. Like Australia is in it again, right? Like,
Oh yeah, Australia's
right.
crazy.
But so the idea was sort of to do another solo episode, which great deal of resistance around for the effort that needs to go into it and the time and dedication to it.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it about our cognitive biases, basically.
What does
right?
that mean?
So, because our brain takes up so much energy
Yeah.
from our body, like it's one organ and it's one, you know, organ system out of, actually Justine showed me a video the other day. She's in school for teachers college, so she's getting all these like cool, crazy resources.
Sick.
She's showing me.
Sick.
And there's a couple, like, I think they're National Geographic, like the body 101, the brain 101, the immune system 101, and they're short, like videos, they're like 5 minutes, and they're like
Sick.
mind-blowing. And the one talks about our body systems, and it's like we have 10 body systems, right? That are the skeletal system, muscular system, the heart and cardiovascular system, the brain and central nervous system, the like thyroid endocrine system, or endocrine system, the urinary or renal system, the reproductive system, the respiratory system, the lungs.
Shit, everything. Almost.
The lymphatic system, which is also the immune system, and there's one more, doesn't really matter right now, but we have all these systems, right? And the brain being only one of those systems, and ultimately like one organ, the brain, it's the whole central nervous system, but it takes up 20% of our body's resources essentially, right? And I lost my train of thought, kind of going on a tangent there, but
all these resources.
Well, I think
she went to class. She got all these resources.
Yeah, it was funny too, because actually this happened a couple times. This is the kind of thing that I would cut out sometimes, because I'd be like, "Fuck, what were we talking about?" And then like literally just stop recording, go back and listen for a minute, and then I'd be like, "Oh yeah," but that's fine anyway. I think I was just talking about, like, it's, fuck, what was I talking about?
Dude, I gotta say something too.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Continue. We can just go on with it.
No. This is part of what's happening right now. This, like, my attention span is good for like 45 seconds. I can give you the most in-depth, thought out, like, analysis of something, but after like a minute or two, because I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like
it's not just you.
It's not my attention span, but it's because in a conversation, I'm always like I have a practice of being as present as possible. So like I'm building up. You know how people, when you're talking, like they're like, you say something and they're thinking about a response to the thing you said, and then you've talked for half an hour and then they missed that whole fucking half an hour. Because they were like, oh yeah, but I want to respond to that thing half an hour ago. So I built up a practice to stay with people. And then if like I feel like there's something that pulls me based on what they said, then I'll just bring it up in the moment and then keep it moving instead of like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, well, that's the thing.
Remembering all the details.
And actually, like, Justine had pointed it out to me, because like when we first started becoming friends and getting together and stuff, like we would have these like 3, 4, 5 hour long conversations over like Zoom while she was in Korea teaching English, and she brought it up to me that like sometimes I'll talk too much and sort of not give space for the other people, the other person to really join the conversation kind of thing. And then, which even in some ways I'm like, I'm doing it right now.
See, but this is my thing. Like, so it's there. It's like, but it's funny because I feel like once people are in front of you, then you're inspired to speak uninterrupted. But if there's no one there, like you can't do it. So I'm like, there's got to be something there, because you have the ability. You could probably speak for like an hour or two.
Easily. But that's the thing. Like I've had so many conversations before starting the podcast that made me want to start a podcast, that I have a deep, connected conversation, authentic, about like real shit for hours. And it's in those moments that are one of the, like, my favorite experiences in life, because I'm in a state of flow where I'm not thinking, I'm just speaking whatever's sort of coming through me, and I don't know where it's coming from, and I start pulling all these facts and info of shit that I've read over the years, and I'm like, whoa, like, where is this even coming from? Part of it is even like, who is this person? Because this person isn't my experience of myself when I'm by myself, which is similar to the issue with like doing the solo episode, right? Oh, I was talking about that, and now to bring it back.
Yes.
Cognitive biases.
Yes.
Is what we were talking about. Yeah. So, all right, we got it back.
We got it back. Now you got to keep the back end in, dude.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I'm keeping that. I'm keeping that, especially after we already talked about it. No, that'll stay. So I was talking about sort of the energy expenditure of the brain. So cognitive biases are a evolutionary set of shortcuts, essentially, that our brains take universally to try to save energy, essentially, right? So when we make assumptions about things based off maybe something we've known in the past, that's evolutionarily like a really good thing to do, because it saves us energy from having to treat every situation like it's brand new, basically, right? So there are a whole set of cognitive biases, which essentially they're good for some reasons, but they're actually really bad for some reasons, especially when, like, one of the most well studied and most prominent ones is called confirmation bias, where rather than sort of like investigating like a problem or a topic or something that you want to learn about from a truly like neutral perspective, where you're actually looking at both sides to really like understand both sides to make up your mind, what we actually do for the shortcut is we look for the information that confirms confirmation bias, our already held beliefs about said thing, right? And part of the reason I wanted to talk about this is that over the course of the pandemic, it's been something that I've just seen so clearly in people who are on different sides of the various debates of what's going on right now. So that's one of them, but there's this whole set, and I'll put in like the show notes. There's a website I came across and shared several months ago that outlines like the top 24, like there's a bunch of them, like the top 24 most well-known and well-studied like cognitive biases. And then there's also these other things called logical fallacies, and those are more related to failures of logic in how we argue our side of any sort of discussion or debate kind of thing. And so I wanted to make an episode about these, but I kind of was like stuck in this space of like, I've read about these before and they're hard to understand, right? So
What do you mean when you say they're hard to understand? Let's break that down, because it's like, is it hard to understand, or is it just that you don't want to bring that information to the type of people that potentially are your audience right now? Because Jordan Peterson talks about very complex ideas and concepts, and people eat that shit up.
No. So it's not in that sense. It's very complicated in the sense of me even wrapping my own head around it well enough to really speak to it.
Oh, to communicate.
So not necessarily like, oh, this is too complicated for like, you know, my audience. No, certainly I and millions of people love listening to people like Jordan Peterson and others talk about incredibly complicated, complex, nuanced things, right? Which is part of the angle even in wanting to talk about these cognitive biases, confirmation bias, failures of logic and reason in our ways of arguing with each other, because it's been so widespread in the culture throughout the pandemic, and people against, you know, masks and lockdowns and vaccines and all the conspiracies that have come up. And so there was like a level, there was like sort of a few different things kind of working, not necessarily against me, but in favor of my resistance, sort of strengthening my resistance.
Now I have to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Because I've heard your podcast, but I'm still wondering what direction you want to take it in. Like, what's your podcast theme?
Well, I mean, I made it about several different things. Like, in the first episode, I outlined, it's like there's these 15 topics. And it's interesting because I had those topics down to rifle off at a moment's notice. Because it's been so long since I've done an episode. I actually looked them up again the other day because I was like, there's 15 of them. What the fuck are they again? But so part of the reason is like there are some central themes around mental health and addiction and politics and social issues and psychedelics, and it's sort of, I think it's broad in necessity, because it's really about like trying to understand ourselves and each other and the world that we live in the context of this crazy modern world that's that's evolving so fast, so much faster than like we can really keep up with it in many ways. And that we have all of these like extremely complex problems. One of the biggest issues, I think, with the way we speak to each other about it, especially people that disagree very like deeply on the reasons behind the issues or whatever they might believe, is that like we need to be able to have these really complicated, nuanced, in-depth conversations about these things, and that's the space that I want to sort of exist in, play in, right? So it's, and I've had, I've taken business courses, entrepreneur courses, and I'm well aware of the like the need to niche down on your topic and be a specialist rather than a generalist and stuff like that. But through doing like work on that time and time again, I come back to this. Well, my favorite things are actually the ones that exist in this bigger picture overview space of the complexity of being human in the modern world and the grand challenges that we're faced with.
What are those things? Like, just give me two.
Well, I mean, we have growing inequality, wealth inequality, climate change, the overstepping the planetary boundaries.
How the hell do you make climate change sexy?
I don't know. I mean, people do it. Like, I think in some ways it's...
To me, it sounds like you're watching the news at that point. Like,
I don't think so. I think, like, well, I definitely speak to and try to...
Well, it all depends, right? Let me ask you this then. Okay, climate change. Are you speaking about the facts, or are you speaking about the social effect of it?
Well,
on our community.
So I was gonna say, like, I want to try to in the answering, like, the how do you make it sexy, trying to focus on solutions. Like, it's easy to get caught in the doom and gloom and the hopelessness and the apathy and the confusion of the world, and it's there are reasons for that. We focus on the negative more easily because it is biologically, like, advantageous for us to pay more attention to things that can hurt us than the more fleeting things that are positive and joyful, right?
Yeah.
Same as our memories of our deepest pains are so much more visceral than a lot of, like, the more positive memories for a lot of people. Not everyone, but it's a biological evolutionary advantage, right?
Yeah.
But, like, I've over the years been trying to focus on solutions, and I want to do that, and it's like there are a lot of people, there are a lot of organizations out there doing amazing work on all of the issues that we're faced with, but we don't hear about those in the news, really. We hear every day, it's like you turn on CP24 or whatever your local news station is, and it's murder, shooting, stabbing here. If it bleeds, it leads is still the model, right? But so I've wanted to have a bit of a focus on, like, the movers and the shakers and the game changers, the change makers who are making positive changes in the world. And also focusing on those things helps with, those feelings of depression, hopelessness, anxiety for fear of the future, feeling like we don't have a future if we don't solve this shit. But, I guess, like, one of the things, I've been talking too much. I want to get you talking a bit. I guess, like, what's your experience been like the last year and a half with everything that's been going on and with just, like, dealing with everything? And
okay, well, I mean, that's a loaded question. Okay, let's just start from the top. Overall, it's been life-changing because, shit changed. Like, for me, as an image consultant, a big part of my business was, like, bringing people to the mall. And if malls close, then you have to make a change, right? So I took it as a sign, like, to make a transition, because for me, like, it was fun, it was exciting, but there were other things that I wanted to give my energy to, but I didn't make the time, or I didn't, like, I made excuses for why I couldn't do them. And so COVID, I think, did this for a lot of people, not just me.
For sure.
But it just, like, gave us the opportunity, or gave me the opportunity to stop making excuses and explore other avenues. And so the biggest thing that happened was just being able to explore the shit that I really wanted to do. And so day trading was one of those things. I put a lot more attention on my the coaching practice side of things. I, like, got to, like, talk to people, family. Oh my God, I hadn't seen family in, like, I'm like, who are you, man? I didn't even know we were related. So honestly, man, a lot of fucking great. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast?
Yeah, of course. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah! A lot of family reconnections, man. If I had to sum it all up, connecting with family was the biggest fucking difference.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds corny or it sounds crazy,
No.
but you don't realize, at least for me, I didn't realize how important it was to connect with family. Like, you know, you get so used to going to the job, coming home, doing whatever creative thing you want to do, talking to your small little niche of friends, and you have like your little world, right? And then you forget that the world expands outside your home, outside your job, and you know there's other people living life, and you forget to, you know, how to even fucking be social because you've been in a box forever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been nice to just re-socialize, you know, learn how to re-socialize. Like that's what it taught me too. It was just like things went quiet, and I actually was happy because I thought it was really nice to get that peace of mind for a little bit, you know. But just realizing, yeah, it's important to actually connect with people and like put the phone down and say, hey, how you doing? Let's get a coffee. Now you can't even go into a fucking coffee store without them asking for a vaccine card for you to sit down. And then you start to think, oh, maybe sitting down and having a coffee with a human being is a fucking privilege. Because it is. And so for me also, like a big part of the change was reframing what I find valuable in my day-to-day life. So yeah, it matured me quite a bit, man, to be honest. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's interesting too that you're like, you know, you say spending more time connecting and speaking with family and stuff sounds corny, and it's like, no, man, like that's like one of the most important things in the world. And I feel like you had asked kind of like about climate change, like, you know, am I speaking about the facts and whatnot? And one of the things that is related to what you said, I think, is that I like to think about things and try to think about things from a deeper, wider perspective of like what's sort of the underlying issues in the individual and collective psychology of us as human beings and our communities and our businesses, and how all of those things drive the world into the crises that we're faced with. So it I find that very interesting because I do the same thing. I used to do the same thing, I should say, but now I find myself doing the opposite of that, because what I realized is that the macro view is important, but like I'm like, okay, because I had all these thoughts about how can I change the world. I think, I don't know. Of course.
You know what I'm saying? Like, how can I save the world peace, all this good stuff. And then I realized, like, the macro view is only useful when you're empowered. So I'm like, fuck, I don't have the resources to do anything.
It's also when you attack it or work on that problem from the micro, right? Because, of course, we have to start with ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves properly. You know, we have to have, our cup has to be full before we can go and try to, you know, fill other people up, let alone try to tackle the biggest problems in the world.
But not only that, like I hear what you're saying, because that's like, that is the core of it. But also, like, for me, it was like, you can't, I didn't think that I could even understand the problem at a micro level until I had the experiences of the micro. Like, I had to go, okay, what is the journey of like getting to the place where I can actually help other people? What are my thought processes like? Like, do I even want to help people? Right? Because these are the questions that I don't think I was asking before. Like, it was like, I'm just assuming that people don't want to help other people, right? I think that's why there's not world peace. But maybe there's something more to it. So, what position am I in, right? I don't know if you guys can hear this, but we're outside and there's these beautiful, gorgeous dogs playing catch with their owner.
Look at the good boys.
God, I love dogs.
Yeah.
Oh.
Take him down.
Right? But yeah, it's like you don't really truly understand a problem until you understand the micro. Because it's like the micro is where it begins. That's the inception of the problem, right?
That's what I'm saying, though, too. It's like we can't understand these grand problems of climate change and corporate and like political corruption and the problems that we're trying to solve in our own lives, unless you go into the micro. And that's our ways of thinking, our belief systems, and something that I have been focusing on more to sort of take a little bit of a step in another direction is that I've done a lot of individual and group therapy over the years. And I've done a lot of I've done meditation programs, entrepreneur programs, trying to figure out what I want to do with my life and what is it that's really at that core micro kind of level. What are the things that are really holding me back from being the person I want to be and doing the things I want to do. And I've done these leadership programs and stuff. And what it's done is sort of it's helped to continually raise my awareness of the sort of the issues at hand, the reasons that we hold ourselves back and stuff like that, and the defense mechanisms that we put up from such a young age, right? And so it's we've all experienced trauma in different ways, and that for me is something for the last few years I've been kind of I need to go in that direction more. I need to learn more about that in a deeper way. And there's this woman, her name's Dr. Nadine Burke-Harris, and I actually just shared a couple talks of hers recently, and she is the Surgeon General of California. She's a pediatrician, and she basically the space that she works in is childhood trauma. And there was a study that was done called Adverse Childhood Experiences. Yeah. And it's basically it's sort of a set of categories of traumatic things that can happen to children. Like if your parents have split up, or you have a parent that's incarcerated, abuse, whether physical, mental, emotional, sexual, and things like that. If you had a parent that was struggling with addiction or mental health, there's a whole set of them, and there's 10 or so, and they've been sort of it started out with less and was expanded upon, but it's kind of consistently the studies have been replicated all over the world and in all sorts of different communities. So it's basically across the socioeconomic spectrum. It doesn't matter about how much money your parents made, your race or your sex. Nothing like that matters. The statistics bear out the same, basically, that about 2 in 3 people have experienced at least one adverse childhood experience.
Get out of here.
Right? Well, I mean, of course, think about it. Some type of abuse or neglect, which is also categorized by the World Health Organization as abuse. And having parents that are split up, everybody's had some terrible shit that they've experienced, right? And most people, I think, or a lot of people, they experience those things and then they get over it, or they work through it. They manage, and then some people don't, right? But it's 2 out of 3 people have experienced at least one. But I think it is 1 out of 7 or 8, about 13% of the population kind of the world over has experienced 4 or more. Oh! Right? Mine's 7 out of 10. And
yours personally?
Personally, yeah. I've done, you can go online.
I gotta check this. Yeah.
You can go online and look at the list, and it's basically for everything pretty much above 4 is you are almost guaranteed to have negative health outcomes impact in your life across time, and they've done long-term studies that show this as well. And hold up, before I continue that thought, something that I forgot to mention here when I was talking to Jordan, the most important thing that Nadine Burke-Harris talks about when she's talking about ACEs is that despite the fact that, as with most things, early detection and working on healing things, the earlier the better, but she makes a very, very important point to stress that, if you go and check your ACEs score, no matter how many you have, no matter what you've experienced, it's never too late to heal. It's never too late to heal. All right, let's go. So that's something I've been trying to focus on recently, because it's like I've done all this different, work on myself, trying to understand the struggles that I have, and this seems to be like a lens that is like making more sense, that it's like it's the traumas that we experience that create the negative and limiting beliefs that we have about ourselves and what we're capable of, or that we're not good enough in XYZ way. We're not beautiful enough, we're not sexy enough, we're not smart enough, we're not cool enough, whatever it might be. Like you deal with your clients, it's like their self-image is the problem that's actually at the heart of
everything,
not being able to do this thing. And then kind of in the realm of these grander issues that we're faced with, it's like the accumulation of those types of issues and not having like space in our cultures, in our societies, to actually talk about those things openly in like a kind of supportive, loving, non-judgmental space where you can talk about these things that we're the most afraid to talk about. It's like that's how you actually work through those things. Like some of the most impactful moments of my life, both with like my fiance and with some of the coaches and some of the programs I've done, is being given the space to talk about something that for years I had essentially convinced myself that I will never tell anybody this is coming to the fucking grave with me. But then somebody giving me the space and it just unfolding how it might, that I actually do tell someone about that at some time, and they meet me not with not with disgust or with shame. That is part of why we don't tell those things, because we hold on to this shame and guilt and all sorts of shit. But to be like met with non-judgment and compassion and love still is like how you actually transmute those things or transform those things and actually heal them and stuff like that. And it's like I think that things like climate change and the like insane inequalities and injustices in our world actually are rooted in those types of problems, right?
Yes, I'm waiting for the world to fucking figure that shit out. Like, we don't have a financial crisis, we don't have a homelessness crisis. These are not the problem. These are outcomes of the problem. The problem is the fact that we don't know how to be human beings that give and take equitably and share the space. And if somebody falls, you pick them up, man. So if somebody's having a mental health issue, that's deeper than like, bro, if you have you know what I love? Like these countries like Denmark, where it's like they just fucking figured something out. They're all, I mean, I don't wanna say something culturally untrue, so let me just take a second. But in these types of places, they've figured out some sort of formula where it's like everybody enjoys a similar what's the word I'm looking for? Quality of life.
Yeah, and it's not like they're communist countries that try to make everybody the same.
Exactly.
Equal. It's like Bernie Sanders calls it essentially democratic socialism, where it's like they pay higher taxes and they have greater public services and safety nets and shit like that. It's like it doesn't mean they're perfect.
But beyond that though, because that's the easy way out. Saying, yeah, they pay higher taxes so shit's better. But no, that's not what the fuck it is, man. It's
about taking care of each other more and funding your society in a way that creates the outcomes that you want, rather than believing in, like, it's like the States in particular is like a lot of the sort of like more conservative, everybody's got to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, can't give anybody anything for free or it'll make everyone lazy and not want to work. Like that type of shit has been proven untrue in like study after study of like, universal basic income studies that have been done over the past several decades and stuff like that. And it's like there are just false, provably incorrect, untrue ideologies that continue to drive the policy decisions essentially in many places in the world.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's just about being a decent human. That's where I was going with that. Like you go to these places and you just have a sense that everyone looks at everyone else like a decent human being. And if there's an issue, the community is there to help. And I don't know how to replicate that. I don't know if we can replicate that globally. Do you think? Like, what do you think? Do you think that we can have? It doesn't have to be Denmark, but I'm just saying.
I don't know. Like, fuck this past year and a half. One of the things that happened, like, I sort of, you said that some of what happened sort of gave you an excuse to try new things and go deeper into things that you felt were like beneficial for you, like connecting with family and stuff like that. And it did a lot of the opposite for me, kind of like it's almost like it gave me an excuse and all this proof of how fucking crazy the world is and how complicated and messy things are, and that like what the fuck could I possibly do or say, or what does it matter for me to do my podcast when things are so complex and messed up and whatnot, right? And to sort of go into my own, like, I'm not good enough to do anything positive about this because my voice doesn't matter kind of. I got stuck in that type of bullshit a lot in the last year and a half. And one of the things that happened was, like in like 2009 when like the global financial collapse happened, I got really into politics and social issues and like who's really making the decisions that are running the world. Like, how did, these bankers create this worldwide crisis, tank the global economy, and then get bailed out, and no one who created this got in trouble? Right? Like, there are such big systemic issues like that. And that led me down the, like, conspiracy rabbit hole. And I went really deep. So when, I sort of, like, realized that wasn't a space that I wanted to be in. I think there's a lot of truth when you go down those holes. But they're mixed in with misunderstandings and simplifications about the complexity of the world. It's like answering with simple answers to the complex problems of the world is a lot of what's going on with that stuff. And I realized that if I wanted to actually make an impact in the way that I want to and want to just feel the way I want to feel, which is not how shitty I was feeling paying attention to conspiracy shit all the time, I had to get away from that.
Yeah.
And it took quite a lot of time to sort of like I started focusing more on science and things and trying to have more evidence-based ways of looking at the world per se to sort of get out of conspiratorial ways. But it made an imprint on me that it took literally, like, I felt like in some ways you can never unlearn some things. And so in some ways I'll never be able to let go of that way of like conspiratorial ways of thinking, because a lot of it's true. Like, there is a revolving door between business and government, and the government is paid off and bought by the corporations, and the regulators go to the industry that they were supposed to be regulating. Like, so there's
hold on. Like, this is a good point, and this is why I like the micro view when we're looking at big issues. Because when you look at the big issue, the macro view, then it's like politics. But what does that mean? Like, what is politics? What is that? What does that thing? It's like, it doesn't make sense. People try to understand politics.
Well, it's people. Everything's people. Everything about this world is us.
But like
who, in a lot
people?
of ways.
Where are these people? Who are these people? Do you know their names?
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, certainly, like, we could go into some things. Not necessarily like I have a bunch of names off the tip of my tongue that I would name with what we're like talking about per se, but also lost my train of thought again.
Well, sorry, continue.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, like, I was going somewhere with that. Like, the reason why I asked that question was because I feel like part of the problem is that as a community and as individuals, we don't look at what we can do as individuals. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and you also asked, like, you know, do I believe that we can build this, like, you know, like more equitable society that you know, that we can actually solve these problems. And in some ways, yeah, like this past year and a half has been kind of like, whenever this happens, typically, like, historically speaking, when pandemics happen, conspiracies become more widespread. It's like, it's not a new thing. But it's like we've seen these, like, conspiracies break into the culture, into mainstream society in a way that, like, I never even thought was fucking possible basically, right? But something that I was sort of getting at was, like, I had already been deep in the rabbit holes and in that space, and I recognized that it wasn't where I want to be. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel like I could make any sort of impact that I want to make in my own life and in the world by peddling that type of information, basically, despite believing that a lot of it is true, but it's mixed in with a lot of either misunderstandings or outright mis or disinformation, which is what we've seen a lot as well. And, like, knowing that some of that is, like, you know, coming from the level of other countries that are not friendly to the West having, like, a organized, purposeful, like, trying to disrupt our societies and shit like that. Like, thinking about that type of shit is going on. Like, there are people that are very intelligent that have, you know, like, work in intelligence communities, or, like, I listened to a monk dialogue the other day with this guy. I forget his name, but he's like one of the world leading historians on authoritarianism, and, like, they talk about those things. They validate that, like, those things are happening, right? And so it's like I focused more on science and felt like doing that, even that's like a trigger word now too, because cognitive biases and confirmation biases, that you can go find science to fucking prove your point in whatever your point might be, right?
True.
And people do that. And people are like, you can't trust the science, it's all bias, it's all bullshit, whatever, right? But I basically, like, I had a world view, or a view about myself that I've been carrying for years, since that sort of, like, you know, excursion into the rabbit hole that I had. And when I pulled myself out of it, and I've done all these different programs and stuff, I had this weird belief that when society starts to collapse, because it's bound to happen, if it's not a pandemic, it could be a solar flare that wipes out our fucking power grid, it could be any number of things. But if you know anything about history, you know that it's full of wars and social collapses in all sorts of different ways, and that we're bound to see some shit, basically. And I had this idea that I don't know how, but when it happens, I'm just gonna know what to do, and I'm gonna, like, step up and step into my leadership. And I've done all these leadership trainings, and then the fucking pandemic happened, and I was like, and everything exploded, sort of. And I listened to so many, like, monk dialogues and talks with experts about what's going on and the world after the pandemic, and, you know, the world going on with living with this virus now and all sorts of stuff. And I see things as being so big and so complex that it can be overwhelming, of course. Also a good reason to focus on more micro stuff than macro. But I had that belief that I would know what to do absolutely shattered, because when this all happened, I had no idea what to do. I'm like, I'm not a fucking expert on, you know, geopolitics or medicine, or I don't have any scientific training. Like, it just, it was, you know, another reason for me to go deeper into my resistance and my I'm not good enough shit. Because it's like, well, I thought I was going to know what to do, and I don't know what to do. So, like, and it's like, it's time for me to just sit back and just watch the show. Just watch what's going on. What do I have to say? Who the fuck am I? What's the point? And I just don't know. It's been like a lot of that kind of the past year and a half leading to like not making a new podcast episode for so long. And I don't know, like, do you ever get, I mean, we all do in our own ways, but do you ever get caught in that type of shit yourself? Just like the kind of like, what's the point, or I'm not good enough, or what impact can I make, or like, how do you deal with that stuff?
That's a great question. How do I deal with that? I definitely have moments where I'm like, where I self-doubt. But I guess at some point I realized that you can't save the world. And you shouldn't, like...
No, you shouldn't try.
Like, I won't say you shouldn't try, because, like, people have the ability to live whatever reality they want to. But what I'll say is, if you want to be in a reality where you save the world, right? It starts and it ends with you. That's what I didn't understand. Like, for the longest time, I wanted to be, like you were saying, I wanted to be ready.
Lots of us.
Right? It's the hero complex, right?
Messiah complex.
The Messiah complex, all that shit, right? But, you know, I look at guys like Elon Musk. These guys are doing huge things, right?
Yeah.
But he's not really
Few and far
saving
between.
the world
Well,
either.
it's also not him. He has massive fucking teams of amazing,
Thank you.
smart people
Thank you.
that are behind him, that are doing the things that they're doing together.
Mm-hmm.
He might be a figurehead and a decision maker and a public face of those companies, and those companies wouldn't exist without him. Like, for sure. He's a big. He's like the real life Iron Man.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, it's about the connections that we have and the communities that we have and stuff like that, which I think is hard for a lot of people, because when you try to do things, especially when you're starting out, it's hard to build those connections and those communities. And it's like, you know,
What do you mean it's hard to build those connections? What do you mean?
I think in my experience, it's like, it's hard for me to show up and do something consistently for a long time, and to really push through and persevere through the setbacks that'll inevitably happen, and not let them derail me for a year and a half, kind of thing. And also to find your tribe or your people that are wanting and able and willing to really like work on stuff with you as well, like to find people to build stuff together with. And like Adrian is a perfect example of somebody who I have found in the realm of like making music and stuff like that. I've told you, like, I've been kind of working on recently.
Yeah.
But I find that like finding those people it's hard. And I find it's like few and far between, because even the people I've done these like really deep work in these leadership workshops and programs with over the course of like a few months, it inevitably like seems to always fizzle out, and so it feels like you're on this hero's journey alone. And well, I mean, you are. It's like what the hero's journey is all about, is like you go out on your journey alone.
Yeah.
And then you come back with your things to teach that you learned, basically. Right?
But I wanted to ask you a question. Your partner's name, what's her name?
Justine.
How did you guys meet?
We met through friends a few years before it was kind of like we met at a couple parties. Like, her friends and my friends went to a music festival, Electric Forest, in Michigan together. And then they became friends, and then we met each other a couple times at like parties, crossed paths pretty much, and was just kind of like a, hey, introduced, but then didn't like really turn into anything, even like a friendship. It's funny because this is a good lesson for, you know, you never know what's going to happen when you do actually create and you do actually share the things that you create that you care about. Because that's actually how this relationship happened. Because I had a blog And she was in school for social justice and peace studies.
Yeah.
And I just, out of my own interest, I wrote a post on my blog about neoliberalism that one of our mutual friends, my friend, shared on her Facebook, and then Justine saw, and Justine commented on it on my blog, and we talked a little bit on Messenger, and it also is like the sort of like miraculousness of chance events as well is part of what makes the world so fucking magical, because she was in BC planting trees, so she's somewhere where like there's no fucking reception, there's no internet, there's no reception, anything. She just happened to, like, while she was in town on the weekend one time, which wasn't a normal thing that happened often, she was in a Timmy's and decided to check her Facebook and saw my friend Kendra post this fucking blog.
I don't ever, like, when people tell me these things, I'm like, they go, what are the odds? And I say, all the fucking odds, man. But you said something important, and I want to bring it back to the conversation we're having. I didn't just ask you that question without a purpose. You said it's hard to connect with the people, but it's hard to not connect with the people when you're in your purpose. Right?
For sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, that's like that idea that, like, you know, it's not what I think it's like something about like what the world really needs is people who have become like lit up inside by like their purpose or the thing that they want to pursue, and not letting these other people or your parents or your friends that don't think it's a good idea or disagree with you, like it doesn't matter what you're gonna do, there's gonna be untold, even the trolls and strangers that'll fucking tear you apart on the internet these days is like some next level shit that we're like evolutionarily not prepared to deal well with. But it's like, it's when you do what you want to do and be who you want to be anyway, that you connect with the people that you need to connect with. And that's how it's happened for me too, right? Because
so
it's
what makes it hard? You said it
well,
was hard.
I mean, it is though, because there are like really powerful biological evolutionary things at the heart of our inaction on things, because it's wired so deeply into our psychology and even our physiology with our fight or flight system, essentially, that we don't want to do anything that will get us banished from the tribe. Right? Like, this is...
So it's not hard. You're making it hard.
Well, I mean, isn't that the key to everything?
Yeah!
Right?
That's so interesting. Yeah, I just wanted to know if like what your experience was. That's
it's
all.
like, have you ever heard of the book The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
The War of Art. It sounds familiar.
I'll put it in the show notes, so you don't have to like write it down or anything. But so it's a, you know, national bestseller. The city of Sparta in Greece made him an honorary citizen because of his writing, basically.
That's insane.
It's insane. And the book is incredible, and he has got a couple. He's got like The War of Art and Turning Pro, which I've read both of those, and they're pretty thin books, and there's actually not much on each page. It's sort of like a paragraph, and a few times you'll have it's like a heading on each page, and then a little paragraph, and then another heading, and it's like it's really like a easily digestible book. And like for me, it's so like nail on the head for this resistance that we are faced with as creatives, especially. And it doesn't matter if you're creating art or a relationship or a business or working on your health. It doesn't matter. It's like anything good that you're trying to create in your life, you are going to be met with internal resistance primarily, even before the external resistance that you're bound to face as well. But he actually sets it up as like in the on the field, like in the new book I'm reading, I think it's the third one, it's called Do the Work. And the like very first page says something to the effect of, on the field of the self, there is a knight and a dragon. You're the knight, resistance is the dragon.
Ooh.
And he sets it up as resistance is actually our immortal enemy that's inside us. It's our own psychological mechanisms, and rationalization is resistance's like general, like right hand man. And the tag team of them, they are essentially like, they're not evil, but they will do anything, no matter how immoral, to keep you in your comfort zone, to keep you small, because biologically, psychologically, physiologically, socially, we have been hardwired over literally millions of years of evolution that you do anything to stand up, rock the boat, don't be the nail that stands up because you'll get hit with the hammer. You do anything to get banished from your fucking tribe, or to be judged and criticized, then it equals death. That's the level of what's happening inside. So on one hand, we do make it complicated and a problem for ourselves. And I do that. I feel like all the therapy and programs I've done has given this internal resistance a near impenetrable story of complexity, of real things, but that it feels almost at times insurmountable. Right? And so these books like just lay it out. They're so good. And I'm like, that's me. That's me. That's me. It's like insane how fucking like just clear he is in his framing of this like internal struggle that we have when we're trying to do anything good in our lives. Trying to create anything, trying to get better sleep, eat better, build a business, make some art, get a relationship. It doesn't matter. Like, resistance and rationalization come in with the fucking 1-2 punch and knock you out. And like, realizing that that's the case is this like immortal struggle of humanity that exists within each of us. And then it fucking funnels out, ripples out to the communities and the businesses and the governments and the world and shit like that. Right?
That's deep. Yeah.
It's so on the one hand, it's like we do this to ourselves, and on the other hand, it's actually just, this is the struggle of the human experience. Right.
I just have to make this comment because it's on my mind right now, but it is like getting uncomfortably cold.
Yeah. It's getting very cold here.
Like, and normally I wouldn't say anything because
I'm cold too.
I wouldn't say anything normally, but because I don't want it to affect the integrity of this podcast, I thought I would mention it to you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
I don't care. We can keep it going, but I want you to have that in your mind as we continue forward.
Well, I know it's been in my mind too. I'm glad you like
voiced
it.
it. Yeah.
I'm glad you voiced it.
You have a real jacket, a Colombian jacket.
It's actually like a thin.
It's a spring.
Thin windbreaker. It's not good.
This is like,
my hands are pretty icy.
Yeah, right.
So I guess like we're at about an hour right now, so we can start to think of like how could we wrap this conversation up. I guess.
What was like? Where did we even go?
I don't know. Well, this was the thing. It's like certainly when I've done my solo episodes, I've done a lot of like, I want to talk about this and this and this and research those topics to get some of the talking points I want to talk about, and then do a show outline to think about how can I weave these topics and things I want to talk about through this conversation I'm going to, like, this journey I'm going to go on my own, right?
Yeah.
And with like a conversation with a guest, with like having you on, and especially after like having not done an episode for so long, I was like, I'm not gonna have like a lot of like clear things in mind concepts for what I want us to talk about or anything. I wanted to kind of just have you on and say like thank you for your support and for reaching out to me, not once but twice, to be like, hey, I'm still waiting for the next episode, right? Because those things are important, because they help to break the sort of capsule we can find ourselves in, like that I've found myself in, of not using my voice, feeling like it doesn't matter, feeling like I don't matter. You know, it's like these types of things matter so much, because you never know when somebody's trapped inside themselves.
Yes.
Right?
And you just reminded me. We just came full circle, man. That's what we were talking about. Like the microscopic to macroscopic. How do you change the world? You go from the hero complex to the real. And the real is, you're a human being. I'm a human being. I can reach out and say, hey, man, I want to see you grow, and I want to see you develop, and I want to see you put this out. You have something to say. I want to see you say it. And that's how you change the fucking world. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. That's the thing, right? It's like, it's this idea of like a war of attrition. Like wars are fought and won or lost by 1,000 tiny cuts.
Exactly.
You know? It's like the David versus Goliath type of thing. It's like you can't go straight after the fucking beast. You gotta do little by little baby steps. And you know, it's like, you know, this idea, I think maybe we can end here and your thoughts on this as well, but there's a concept that, like, you know, the big dreams and the big goals that we have in life are us standing, maybe not at the very bottom, the foot of the mountain. Maybe we're a little bit of a ways up because we've taken action steps and we've made progress, and we've, you know, inevitably a rain hits and we slip down, you know, and we misstep, whatever. But it's like the big goals, no matter what they are us looking at the mountaintop, and we can get overwhelmed by the distance to the top of the mountain, when really what we need to do is look at the fucking ground in front of us and look at where we're taking our next step, right? And you might not be taking, and you very likely aren't, because there's that idea that, like, you know, we think of success as this fucking like straight line arrow, but really it's like a plate of spaghetti that goes all over the fucking place. And it's like the same thing with this like concept of like going up the mountain, is like you're not gonna go from where you are directly up, and often it's because the mountain's too steep. You have to go up, zigzag up the mountain. And along the way it's like there's gonna be forks in the road, there's gonna be rain, there's gonna be landslides, there's gonna be setbacks, and sometimes you have to take a different path. But it's like, or sometimes you might have to go back down a bit to go up a different path, right? That kind of thing. And it's like, as long as you're not getting overwhelmed because you're just looking at the top of the mountain and how far it is to go, and like, oh, I don't think I could do it, I'm already out of energy now. It's just looking at the ground in front of you, and as long as you're taking a step up the mountain somehow, some way, then it's like you're making progress. Right? And it's all about, like, one of my mentors, Jay Wong, he's the creator of the Interchange Maker podcast, and he's an amazing guy. He's like interviewed some big people on his podcast. He's like Toronto based as well, and he talks about just, you know, it's like it's progress over perfection. You know, and that's fucking one of the, you know, best pieces of advice in life. And sometimes these setbacks can be good though as well, because it's not all bad. It's not all, you know, me being stuck in my why me's and I don't matter and shit like that, and all these negative things. Some of it has been like I just don't know what to do, so I'm gonna just try to live my life and try to take care of myself, which can be challenging for various reasons. And sometimes we have to pivot. And I've wanted to sing and make music for most of my life, but I've been afraid to for various reasons. One of which is I've been like scared about my sexuality and shit like that. And this is like another whole podcast that I'm gonna probably have with Adrian. But like I came out as bisexual fairly recently, And that's been something I've been actually only discovering for myself in the past like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And it's like I just turned 35. Like for that to become conscious for me at this point in my life is like a fucking what a thing to sort of like deal with, right?
Yeah.
But one of the fears around even singing or making music has been caught up in this like, well, what does that mean about me and my sexuality and how people in my life that I love and strangers, how are they going to treat me if I be who I am? And I'm afraid of what the answer to that question is, right?
Dude, man, you cannot end the episode on a fucking cliffhanger.
The next
Dude! I'm like, now it's like, okay, another 3 hours. Let's fucking go. No. Okay,
that one might be the episode with maybe Adrian next episode.
Yeah.
And diving into that. We actually talked about that being maybe like the next episode.
Sick.
To go deeper into that.
Yeah.
Topic space,
Well,
you know?
okay, really quick. We won't go into it. No, it's okay. If I ask, we will go into it. Never mind. That's what everyone always says.
Ask anyway, and I'll tell you if we'll like.
Well, maybe you can say stay tuned.
Side park it or not. Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna ask, how does that affect your relationship with your fiance?
Yeah. So that'll be something definitely. I'll make that a topic of conversation or a question to answer.
Yeah.
For sure, because it's something that we openly talk about. That's one of the reasons we like ended up together. Basically, was when we started becoming good friends. Was when I was discovering this for myself, and she was one of the people I talked to about it, and she's like one of the most open and loving, generous people I've ever met in my life, and she's met me with nothing but love and understanding and acceptance and compassion. She also, we get in our arguments, and but yeah, it's something I can definitely speak to more when I go into that more on a future episode, but it's like there's any number of things holding us back from being who we want to be, doing what we want to do, creating what we want to create, or sharing what we want to share. And for me, that was like a big one, that's like so deep. And it's held me back from even trying to make music or focus on like singing or anything like that. But over the course of the pandemic, I started taking some music production courses online, and so I've been doing that. So it's like I've taken a hiatus from the podcast and from really like sharing much on social media and stuff, but I've been like working in a space that I've wanted to for years that I'm pretty stoked about, and it's like, who knows like how things are gonna unfold,
where they're gonna go.
Yeah, right.
Okay, well, I'm gonna end by saying thank you for having me, and like this is for me is a milestone because I enjoy your podcast. I like being at the beginning of a creative's journey because it's like, god damn, this is to me the golden place. It's the golden zone, man, right here. So I appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to your continuing in the podcast world, man. If it's in alignment for you, I don't want to.
Well, and that's the thing too. Well, that's the thing. It's like for anyone listening, anything that you want to create, it also is like it doesn't have to look how you think it's going to look, and sometimes you just have to keep going and try not to be a fucking asshole to yourself because it doesn't look how you thought it should or how other people tell you things should look, and just keep going, keep working, and as long as you're doing a step up the mountain in some way, then it's progress over perfection. And thank you so much for coming on and for supporting me and my creative endeavors. And Jordan Lindo, share once again, where can people find you?
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook, Jordan Lindo, on Instagram at unite.infinity, on YouTube at Ask Infinity, and I'm like never on Twitter, so I'm literally going on to Twitter right now to tell you what my Twitter handle is. Can I do it fast enough?
That's okay. Do you have a website or like how do people find you for your coaching practice?
It all happens through Facebook, actually.
Okay.
I have a LinkedIn as well, but it's like word of mouth and Facebook, to be honest. Yeah.
Do you have like a page on Facebook, or is it just through like your personal page?
It's my personal page.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very grassroots.
Cool, man. Well, I'll put everything in the show notes.
And my Twitter is @askinfinity_.
Amazing.
There it is.
Boom.
And we're out.
Peace.
Nice, dude.
Let's get right into it. Here's I just farted. So we're doing a mic check now as well. See if we can hear the dogs barking and shit.
Yeah. So I'm not fucking distracted. Yeah, that's gotta be fucking annoying.
And, like, why wait? Like, if that's how you feel, why wait? You know, like, why
Yeah.
not just do it?
I have a question for you. I'm just wondering, who are you and why are you here? Are we going to live life in fear, or are we going to stand up and make sure we're heard? Are we going to hide or live life by our word?
You know, that's a damn good question.
You can become whoever you choose. The choice lies within me and you. Now it's time to stand up. No time to play it small. Painful history and an uncertain future. Now is the time to evolve.
Aw, you're such a fucking sweetheart. And now, drum roll please. Here's the little Easter egg. This is a song that I've been working on